Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for the new screensavers is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. The new screensavers is brought to you by Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Home plays a big role in your life. That's why Quicken Loans created Rocket Mortgage. It lets you apply simply and understand the entire mortgage process fully, so you can be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. Get started at rocketmortgage.com/NSS.
Farmers hacking tractors, Wi-Fi for acres, and smart speaker phone calls. Live from the Twit Eastside studio, it's the new screensavers.
To the new Screensavers, episode 145 for Saturday, February 24th, 2018. I am Leo Laporte.
And I'm Iain Thomson from The Register.
From theregister.co.uk. Nice to see you, Iain. Thank you for coming. We got a great show for you. We're going to talk about the right to repair, why some farmers have turned into hackers in order to fix their tractors. The tractor hackers. We got Jason Koebler from Motherboard, and he's talked to a number of farmers who are doing this. And, of course, Kelsea Weber from iFixit, a right to repair advocate.
And expert.
That's going to be fun. Jason Howell's going to be here. Cool new professional audio controller for musicians, the Universal Audio Arrow. It's a Thunderbolt 3 device. There are so few Thunderbolt 3 devices out there.
I know. They are something of an endangered species at the moment.
I think Jason had to borrow a Thunderbolt 3 computer just to use it. What else we have here?
Oh, yes. We have Megan showing us the trim, as I understand.
Yeah, it's a bot that helps you solve your financial woes.
And I gather you're something of an expert yourself.
I use it. It bugs me all the time. tr.im. 2 calls for help. One on using a smart speaker. That's why we have a smart speaker here to make phone calls. The second, we'll try to solve this is impossible, a Wi-Fi problem on 80 acres.
That's a lot of boosting, but I'm pretty sure
That's a lot of Wi-Fi.
But we'll see. And we've also got the answer to a couple of questions you've sent in on Spectre and Meltdown,
yes,
which has been running through the industry for a while, and net neutrality in the mailbag. That's always going to be an interesting bit of discussion.
Actually, it's official. As of, I think, yesterday, the Federal Register recorded the new FCC rule. Net neutrality is now officially dead.
Yep, and let the lawsuits begin.
That's right, because they couldn't sue until it was official, so now they are.
So now everyone is going to be piling in. They're going to test this in the courts. We've seen this with encryption. You know, we'll see how the courts work on it. It'll go all the way to the Supremes.
But I think there are a lot more suits. I mean, many states, attorneys general are suing.
Oh, yes.
The EFF is suing. I mean, just pretty much everybody's piling on this
And
one.
a bunch of states are coming in and saying, you know, you can make what rules you like. Yeah. You know,
so this was one that's going to be in the courts for some time. I think, though, that means that the rule stands until it's overturned. So that means net neutrality is dead for at least for the time being.
Yes, certainly. So we're going to be watching. I think the telcos are going to play this fairly smart.
They're not going to
rock the boat too much and just wait until it works through the courts. So.
Once you're not paying attention, that's when they sneak in and take away your net neutrality. Tomorrow is a big day. Mobile World Congress gets underway in Barcelona. A lot of new phones will be coming out. This was leaked onto the web. Samsung, this is a video for their enterprise version of the S9, but look, we can learn a little bit about
gladdened by heart.
Multitasking, multi-window. There's the new DeX. That's their dock that lets you use it as a PC.
I wonder how much they're going to charge for that, because that could be critical.
I have the original DeX. It's not too expensive. That's kind of cool, though. You see that? You can use the phone as a pointer.
Not to mention a great presentation.
A trackpad device, or present with it. Now, a couple of things. There's the dual camera.
Yeah.
The Galaxy S9
It's still got the iris. You saw the little heart rate scanner in there, and the fingerprint now below the camera. That's a really good
And
thing.
because we've reimagined the camera,
Saves on smudging up the camera trying to
Yeah,
find
it was
it.
really in a bad place in the old one.
literally open and ready for
In fact, that was the
business.
number one thing I didn't like about the
apps can be
S9 and
developed
the
and
Note
customized as
8,
your
or the
PC
S8
needs.
and Note 8.
Not the bloatware?
Apps themselves can be
You know, it wasn't that bad. They've really toned that down.
Oh, good.
Let's look and see if there's a...
convenient shortcuts.
Okay, it's waterproof.
Since the
Yeah.
Galaxy S9 is water resistant,
Resistant.
it keeps on
All
working
right.
come rain or come shine.
Don't take it in the tub with you.
I was going to say, I'm not taking it sailing with me. So.
It does look a lot like as the rumor mill said. Oh, stop! Pause it there.
Yeah.
Pause.
There.
Enhance. Zoom. Center. Looks like a headphone jack, doesn't
That
it?
does, doesn't it? But what's the third one? That's what I don't get. You've got a headphone jack,
Yeah.
a C.
Yeah. Type C
Is that
adapter.
micro S? Is that a,
What is
a
that?
micro USB?
It could just be a speaker opening. It might be. It's hard to tell on that.
Okay.
All right. So that's something we'll be wondering about
Layers of
tomorrow.
Security. Samsung Knox is our defense-grade security platform.
So
With enhanced biometrics,
look at that. There's the iris
instantly
scan on the front
recognizes you,
there.
letting you
Notice they're
unlock
not
the phone
doing the
with just a
notch.
glance or a touch.
There's the fingerprint reader.
And the Galaxy S9 wisely separates business data
Wisely.
from personal data.
It does it wisely.
It doesn't stupidly do it.
It looks very much, as the rumor mill said, like the S8, S8 Plus,
Yeah.
Note 8. It's that design style.
A lot of the stuff they got in that advert wasn't down to Samsung. That was just down to Android. You know, sort of the split screens. And
No,
the-
Samsung is different. No.
really?
Yeah. Samsung's doing something a
I've been
little
using
more
Nexide
than the
too
Android Oreo is doing. They didn't mention in this video whether it's Oreo, but I'm sure it will be the latest version.
Oh, has to be.
So that's good. We'll find out tomorrow night. We're going to actually stream the Samsung event from Barcelona. It's in the evening in Barcelona, but it'll be 9 in the morning in this area, the West Coast in Pacific time. Father Robert Ballasare and Ron Richards will be watching the stream with you. You can get their commentary. That's noon Eastern time, and I guess 9 plus 8 is 1700 UTC.
Yeah.
It's 5 p.m. And I think that actually
Just when
Barcelona's...
Barcelona's just starting to kick into party mode. At that
Everybody's
time,
still
so-
asleep. They haven't even gotten out of bed yet. 5 p.m. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I've done so many Mobile World Congresses, and it's just a non-stop. You know, from 8 a.m. until, if you go to bed at 2, you're considered a wimp.
It's
you
the
know?
last show where people really announce new products, right? I
Well-
guess a little bit at CES, but Apple, Microsoft,
the
Google all
one-
have their own events now. They don't go to these.
But this is
events.
the one that everyone has to go to because, and you know,
every
because-
journalist has to go to.
Oh, I'm so glad those days are over. You know, it was just
I
like,
love Barcelona.
I know Barcelona was great, but it used to be 3GSM in Cannes. Now I
would
went
be fun.
down to that, blew the fuse on my laptop. Trying to find a fuse in Cannes at 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning is just, you know,
No fuses for you.
I could buy an extremely expensive and ugly handbag, but getting a
course you could.
fuse, you know.
So we will keep an eye on that. I know that there is going to be a new OnePlus. The 6 is going to have a notch. They've took what Apple, basically, I think Apple said, we give up, we threw in the towel, we have to have an ugly notch.
Yeah.
And OnePlus said, oh no, that's a beautiful design feature. So I bet you a few phones do notches. A lot of phones
It's
do no headphone
just
jack.
ugly as all hell.
I'm okay with it. It's there. I'm used to it now.
It's the cost of doing business.
Apparently it is. We're going to see phones, I think, from LG, maybe HTC. We'll find
Yeah.
out. We'll be covering it all week long. In one tweet, Kylie Jenner destroys $1.3 billion in value for Snap. Although you could dispute, here's the tweet. Does anyone else not open Snapchat anymore, or is it just me? Ugh, this is so sad. And then right below it, still love you though, Snap, my first love.
So continue to hire me if you want to give me lots and lots of money. You know?
But analysts also reported that at least one analyst moved Snap from a hold to a sell. The stock went down, I think, 10%.
This is how
1.3.
Rome fell. You know, it's
Kylie
just,
Jenner,
you know.
your business is in Kylie Jenner's hands. That can't be good.
No, it just, we've got to this point where things can be affected that much, but Snap's got its own problems. I mean, considering the obscene amount of money the CEO was found to be taking out of the business.
And people didn't, how much, I mean, a ton, like Evan.
638 million.
And people didn't like the redesign because it mushed the stories of people they were following together with paid stories from, the Daily Mail and stuff, and they didn't want to see. They were mixing the bikini shots up, and it was too much. And so the young people, there were 1.3 million petition signatures at change.org. Bring back the old Snapchat, to which Snap responded. Just live with it for a little bit. You'll get used to it. I don't think they are going to change it back.
I mean, to be fair, it used to be the same way with Facebook. When they updated their interface,
right,
people were up in arms about it, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, they're kind of like, yeah, we can live with it.
It's interesting because really Snap's real troubles don't come from Kylie Jenner or the 1.3 million signatures. They come from Instagram, from Facebook itself, who is actually starting to take more and more of Snap's users, I believe, away.
Well, I mean, whenever Snap brings out something, then Instagram matches it and adds another little thing into it, because they've got the money to develop it, and I think it'll probably end up with, it's kind of like Microsoft with Internet Explorer and Netscape. Eventually.
I have actually decided to take Snap, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter off my phone.
Oh, you don't have the apps on your phone, do you?
No.
I was going to say. Yeah,
Not anymore.
Just Facebook. The Facebook app and the Messenger app is 3/4 GB of data.
It's not even that, although that is certainly a concern. More for me, I don't want them snooping on me.
Yeah.
And more I'm realizing that the mere act of putting an app on your phone is giving them a ton of data about you.
Absolutely.
And that is a value in and of itself. And so I didn't kill my accounts. I can still use it on the PC.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be waking up in the middle of the night and looking at my Snapchat or my Facebook or my Instagram. You know what I do use, though, and apparently a lot of people do, Dropbox, 500 million registered users. They filed for their public offering. Revenues for 2017 were up $1.11 billion. Losses down. They only lost $100 million.
A
Nothing.
Amount.
Nothing. They lost $200 million in 2016. Nothing.
I went to my bank account and my bank manager and I just said, "Look, I'm terribly sorry. I've lost an awful lot of money in Vegas." That's fine, isn't it? It's like, oh yes, you're creating traffic.
So basically, this is how Alex Wilhelm, who now does financial analysis for TechCrunch, puts it. He says, so what happened is Snapchat paid $1.3 billion. Dropbox paid $1.3 billion to make $1.1 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Uber business model, I understand. It's just, it's baffling to anyone outside Silicon Valley. But somehow it seems to. Although on those user figures, I would have liked to have known how many of them were active monthly users.
Or paying users, right? It doesn't say paying, it just says registered. And of course, there are a lot of people who use the free level. I pay for, I think, a terabyte of Dropbox storage because I just use it all the time. For a while, I had everybody.
Yeah.
I had all Box, Dropbox, Trezor, Google Drive, paid for every Apple's iCloud. And just the other day, I started to kind of get rid. I said, it's the same thing with music services. I have them all. I think it's time to kind of pick one.
Well, you see, I mean, I've had a Dropbox account for a few years now, but I haven't used it in like 9 months, I think. It's one of those things that you use when you have to.
Right. Here's why I pay for it. A lot of Apple apps, it's the default cloud storage.
Okay.
They don't, for some reason, use Apple's iCloud. They use Dropbox. And so many of my apps, Text Expander, apps like that, will store their files on Dropbox by default.
Got it.
So it's convenient.
I don't use an Apple phone, so then
that's probably why. Yeah, that's probably why. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the right to repair. It is a battle. The battle is on. We're talking hacking farmers, baby. Hacking farmers. But first, a word from Rocket Mortgage, from Quicken Loans, the best lender in the country. I want to say number one. They're not quite. That big bank is the number one mortgage lender in the country. They're number two, Rocket Mortgage and Quicken Loans. They are number two with $92 billion in loan. But they are number one in our hearts. According to J.D. Power, number one in customer satisfaction, not just last year, but for the last 8 years. That tells you something. And one of the reasons people love Quicken Loans is because they're technologically savvy. That's why they created this thing they call Rocket Mortgage, an entirely online mortgage approval process. So no more going to the bank, filling out a 20-page application, putting on a tie, begging for money. No more going to the attic to get paperwork, your pay stubs and your check statements and all that stuff. You don't have to call the bank saying, do you still have, man, last time we bought a house, I did a lot of this. Do you still have my bank statements from 2010? They want, and the bank, we went with the big bank because Rocket Mortgage wasn't there yet. The bank kept coming back and saying, well, How about now your pay stubs from your previous job? How about now, can you send us a utility bill from the place you lived in 10 years ago? Oh, it's like crazy. No, Rocket Mortgage, stop the insanity. You can do the whole thing on your phone. You go to rocketmortgage.com/NSS. Simple questions. The application form is less than a page. You answer a few simple questions. Then, because they have relationships with all the financial institutions, you give the institutions permission to pass your information along to Rocket Mortgage. They crunch the numbers, and based on income, assets, and credit, this takes like 5 minutes at most. I mean, it's very fast. They will tell you, okay, here's the loans for which you qualify. You choose the rate, you choose the term, you choose the down payment. If you like it, you say, okay, I'll take it, and they say approved. All of that so fast on your phone, no more going anywhere, nothing. And you could actually do it at an open house if you wanted to. You could do it at breakfast. rocketmortgage.com/NSS from Quicken Loans. Apply simply, understand fully, mortgage confidently. Go there now, sign up, get started. Maybe you'll be going to an open house tomorrow. You don't know. Maybe you want to refi. Now's a good time. Those interest rates are not going to stay so low for much longer.
Ourselves, yes.
Yep. rocketmortgage.com/NSS, equal housing lender licensed in all 50 states, and MLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030. That's Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans, rocketmortgage.com/NSS. So we've been following this right to repair movement for some time, and it's interesting. Some of it is people who have iPhone screens, they want to get replaced by third parties or do it themselves. But a lot of it, believe it or not, is coming from the heartland, from farmers, because they have tractors. John Deere acts like your tractor is a sealed box. You can't make repairs to it. If a third party makes repairs to it before you're allowed to use it, you have to bring it to John Deere and get it certified.
And considering the amount of money they pay for this hardware, you'd think you'd actually have the ability. And if one sensor goes out and then the whole thing stops, and all it's doing is collecting data, then it's the easiest thing in the world for the farmer to come down and actually say, right, okay, I'll just disconnect that, and then the next time the repairman comes around, he can put.
They're turning them into hackers.
Yeah.
Joining us tonight, right now, a man who knows about it. And by the way, I got to thank you, Jason. Is it Koebler?
It's Koebler, yes.
Koebler, editor-in-chief of Motherboard, a Vice publication. You are doing such a good job. That is, I go there every day. Your stuff on Motherboard is fantastic. So thank you, Jason.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
that means a
doing
lot.
A really great job. Also from iFixit, we've met her before, Kelsea Weber. And the reason we have iFixit on is because that's been iFixit's kind of MO all along. You wanted to be the repair manual for the internet.
Yeah, teaching everybody how to fix everything means, eliminating barriers to repair. So we're hoping that right to repair legislation will help us do that. We're
crossing our fingers. So Jason, you've been covering these hacking farmers, tractor hacking farmers. Right? Is this, what's going on? Is this really a movement?
It is a movement, yeah. So there are a lot of farmers who have been finding pirated versions of John Deere Service Advisor on like Pirate Bay or these different pay forums that are out there, putting it on their laptops and flashing it to their tractors in order to, replace different parts. So as you mentioned, if you try to do a repair and you don't have this software, the parts come essentially brain dead. So farmers have been calling out like dealers to come fix things that in the past they could have done in like 5 minutes, and it's taking the dealers, sometimes a few hours, sometimes a few weeks to be able to get out to a rural farm. What's the rationale? How does John Deere justify this? They say that these are sophisticated pieces of machinery, which they are to their credit. But basically every part of a tractor now has software on it, has a sensor. They say, the software helps it stay within EPA compliance, and they basically say that you need an authorized person to be able to fix these things.
Are they worried about piracy?
They're more worried about like modifications of the tractor. So there are farmers out there who are hacking in and souping up the tractors to have a higher horsepower or something like that.
They're overclocking their tractor.
In the same way people do with cars, yeah.
This is like an American tradition, like tinker with your stuff, soup it up, buy it. But John Deere makes a ton of money from its authorized repair services and its dealers. And so it wants to have a monopoly on repair, essentially.
Isn't it also making a ton of money out of the data that it collects when it's doing it in terms of soil consistency and that sort of thing, and then it's selling that on to other people?
I can't talk like deeply on that because I haven't like delved into that world. But there is like a lot of farmers are very suspicious that their data is being used to make money, either by John Deere or like other third-party platforms. And I think it's definitely a legitimate concern.
You have to understand, though, that, I mean, when I think John Deere, I think of my riding mower. Some of these devices are living rooms on wheels. Some of these combines. In fact, we have a listener who actually listens to all our shows while he's out in the fields in his combine, because it basically is like an office, like a living room. It's highly computerized. He doesn't have to do much. It's following the rows. It's doing all this stuff. So this is, I mean, it's not a car. This is heavily software driven. So to understand that, you have to understand it's a lot more than just, souping up your 56 Dodge.
Yes. No, I mean, it's sort of, back in our grandfather's day, you could fix a tractor with a spanner and a large hammer generally, but these days, it's so much more complicated and so much more involved with the software side of things. But if people have always tinkered, and I can't help feeling if you bought this piece of hardware at an amazing price, you should have the ability to just, sort it out yourself if needs be.
How much are these tractors, Jason? I mean, how expensive is it?
Some of them are like $300,000. Okay. So that's another big problem because a lot of them are essentially bought on layaway or like lease
You don't
plans.
own them. John Deere owns them.
John Deere owns them. They license them to you. You spend the next 20 years, making a monthly payment on it, and you have to sign a licensing agreement, and that licensing agreement is very strict. And if you violate it, which, hacking into the tractor does violate the licensing agreement, John Deere can sue you. So that's where this political movement comes in. The hope is that we can get legislation passed, or these farmers, the people involved in the movement, can get legislation passed at a state level that would essentially bar these sorts of terms from licensing agreements. It would also require John Deere and Apple and Microsoft and all electronics companies to sell replacement parts as well as make service manuals available.
Well, Kelsey, that's what you and iFixit have been lobbying for. That's what you do. You are the repair manuals for the internet. You don't have John Deere tractor repair manuals, though, right?
We've got some tractor repair manuals up on the site. Yeah, we do.
Kidding.
We've got, and those have been contributed from some people in our local area. But the right to repair legislation and movement isn't anything new. If you look back to 2012, similar laws were passed in Massachusetts when it came to automotive repair. So requiring manufacturers and dealerships to share repair information, diagnostic information, and parts and tools with independent repair shops. So that was back in 2012. It became a national policy in 2014. So it only took one state to make this happen. And so now we're asking for something similar when it comes to electronics. We just want the repair info, and we want replacement parts to be made available to owners and independent professionals.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, if you...
Wait a minute, what was that? Was that a wooden iPod?
Yeah.
That's something that Apple doesn't want you to do. I can tell you. I can tell you right now.
But hey, you bought it, you own it. A lot of this comes down to ownership rights. Yeah, and I think that John Deere, a lot of these companies are trying to protect their intellectual property, but you can protect your IP and still allow people to have access to repair and maintain the things that they bought and own. So,
and the DMCA complicates this enormously in terms of from a legislative position in terms of whether or not people can actually tinker around with their own stuff.
You can't reverse engineer copy protected software, for instance, and that's what you need to do this kind of thing. This is the Customer Bill of Rights on iFixit's site. And I completely agree, although I'm a little sympathetic if John Deere owns the tractor. One of the things that worries me, and Jason, you report on this, is that a lot of the hacked firmware comes from places like Ukraine.
Yeah, it does. At least according to the farmers and according to like the metadata in the software, it looks like these service advisor was basically hacked either in Ukraine or Russia and then sold back.
So that raises issues in my mind in terms of security, privacy,
we all know how
reliability.
Software in Ukraine can be.
I mean, this is something that's come up a lot, and it's something that hasn't happened yet, but people are talking, if this software is on a lot of tractors all over the country, and they have the ability to basically kill them remotely, like what does that mean for food security? What does it mean for this industry? And I don't think, it's necessarily like a piracy issue there. It's also the fact that John Deere does not want people looking into this closed source software at all. So there's not a whole lot of like security researchers looking into looking for bugs and looking for 0 days in tractors.
Well, you're not going to get Ed Felton or anybody in the United States to do it because, they don't want to run afoul of the law. On the other hand, there are a lot of very, very talented programmers in the former Soviet Union and in Ukraine, people who know how to do this stuff, and they don't have to worry about U.S. law and U.S. regulation. So I'm actually not surprised. I know there's some very good software companies in Ukraine.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, the Russia put an enormous amount of money into training up computer specialists.
Right. And then they didn't have any jobs.
Yeah.
So some of them turned to hacking, but some of them turned to creating good software. So I don't want to impugn just because this firmware is coming out of Ukraine, but at the same time, there's legitimate cause for concern. So
it's pity we don't have an open source tractor movement in a way, but it's.
Is there anything like that, Jason? An open source movement?
Yeah, so I hadn't heard about it, but then after we published this piece, a bunch of people started tweeting at me, and there is a very nascent movement to have open source tractor software. Obviously, the barrier to entry for creating like a tractor is much higher than probably even the barrier to entry for like a computer or something like that. Like these are serious pieces of equipment. They're $300,000 a piece. Like you're not going to have some startup suddenly selling like easily repairable tractors. And that's one of the problems. Like people say, oh, just buy a different tractor, just buy a different phone. But, Case New Holland does this as well, as do the other, like Caterpillar has the same problem. So it's not as easy as just like voting with your wallet.
You had an amazing story, Jason, I think it was last year, about a state legislator in Nebraska, I think it was, where they were trying to do right to repair legislation. And Apple actually tried to bribe them.
So it was, I don't know if we'd call it a bribe. I think it's just standard lobbying, but it's lobbying.
There's
like
a thin line between lobbying and bribing, obviously.
I'm sorry. America has legitimized bribery and just called it lobbying fees.
So what happened?
You guys can say that. So someone showed up in this legislator's office and said, if you guys pass this legislation, Nebraska will become a quote mecca for hackers, which is like.
What?
Bizarre. It's a bizarre thing to say. And, Apple and other companies have threatened some of these smaller states, like Vermont is also considering, right to repair legislation. They've threatened to basically pull out of those states entirely. And you have these state lawmakers who are saying, like, Apple doesn't do any business in Nebraska. Like, it sells its products in Nebraska, but there's maybe like 1 or 2 Apple stores in all of Nebraska. It's not like a big employer there. And so what is a big employer there are these like small independent repair shops that would really benefit from this legislation. So, they have sort of like bigwigs from Cupertino and DC flying in, and they're like, what are you guys doing here?
I would bet, Kelsey, it's not just Nebraska. How many states currently are considering right to repair legislation?
So this year we've got 17 states that have introduced bills, which is huge. It's the most this year so far. So and each bill is a little bit different depending on who's sponsoring the bill in that state. But really, this is just such an important thing for consumers and consumers, choice. We'll be able to allow consumers to either choose to fix it themselves, take it to that local repair shop, or bring it back to the manufacturer in case they have a warranty that they want to go ahead and use. It also helps people save money. They're not being forced into upgrading or forced to paying high prices that the manufacturers typically charge for repair. And, I always come on when I'm talking about teardowns and talk about e-waste. This is anything that we can do to prolong the lifespan of these devices is going to keep them out of the landfills and also create jobs in the process. With all these electronics, we can't just depend on manufacturers to fix all of our things, and we can't leave the control with them in a sense, because like we saw with these farmers, they're waiting for John Deere to come out and approve these repairs. And right now with the iPhone battery gate, we have millions of people that are waiting for battery replacements from Apple instead of just going ahead and doing it themselves or, going to a local repair shop. So we can't just, I bought it, I own it. I don't want, it almost makes me feel like there's a bit of a control over how I'm communicating and like with my livelihood in a sense, because all these things are going to break. And if if I have to wait on the manufacturer to dictate, how and when it's going to get fixed, then that impacts, my daily life in a number of ways. So yeah, it's important to get these things passed for consumer rights.
A PC guy in our chat room was reminding me that there was a YouTuber who showed how to do board level repairs, micro soldering and things on MacBooks, and Apple basically shut him down.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I do have to be fair. I understand a little bit why John Deere might look. We've talked before about jailbreaking an iPhone, for instance, and how risky that is. And I don't recommend you jailbreak an iPhone. I think it's your right. I guess it's your right to do it. You own the device.
That's the nub of it for me. It's you bought it. You have the right to do what you like with it.
But if you aren't. If you don't really own that John Deere tractor, you're paying it off over time.
With a tractor, that's the
and it's potentially going to destroy that thing or cause security issues. Jason, I feel like if there is legislation, it needs to take into account everybody who's a stakeholder, and John Deere and Apple are stakeholders in this.
But if
I think you raise a good point. I think. If you are paying a monthly fee to John Deere to use the tractor, it's their tractor. But if you bought it like wholesale, you should be able to do whatever you want with it. I think that's sort of where I come down on it. I think it's like, if you own it, you should be able to do whatever you want. Like I have an iPhone. I don't jailbreak it because I think, there are many like pros and cons to jailbreaking it. You can't even jailbreak the new ones actually. But I think, it's like, if I buy it, I should be able to do whatever I want with it. And if I mess it up, that's on me. And, Apple doesn't have to service my phone, for instance. I actually have like a quick story if you guys want to hear. But I bought a 2017 iMac last year and I upgraded the RAM in it. Worked great for, a couple months. I did it myself. And then suddenly the screen went dark one day. I need a new screen, a new 4K screen. I must have done something wrong. I don't know. Apple will not fix my iMac at all, which is, it's their prerogative. They won't fix it. But I took it to an independent repair shop that said, sure, we can fix it, no problem, but there's no screen. We can't get a screen.
Because Apple doesn't sell parts.
Yeah.
Apple doesn't sell parts. It's been sitting at that repair shop for 4 months. It's just like I'm out of luck, and, you can call me an idiot. Maybe I am for like botching that repair. But Apple makes, millions upon millions of these screens. They just don't sell them.
Yeah, they want to control the whole thing.
It's complicated, though. For instance, Apple says if you jailbreak your phone, it's not just you potentially being impacted if you get hacked. That phone could then be a problem to cell sites, to the internet, the public internet. I think it's... we're not talking a 1967 VW bug.
Yeah.
I could change the oil. I could do the timing. I could tune it up with my own tools. We're not talking that anymore. The world has gotten much more complex. And all of this stuff interacts with other people's stuff and with the public internet as well. So I think it's gotten complicated. Look, I am in favor of the right to repair. Don't get me wrong. And I'm glad that Kelsea Weber from iFixit and everybody at iFixit they're doing the right thing, teaching people how to fix their stuff, getting parts when they can.
And the screwdriver tool set is fantastic, by the way.
Screwdriver tool set is fantastic.
So many anguish. Where the hell's that screw?
So thank you, Kelsea, for joining us from iFixit. I'm really glad that, Jason, you're doing the great reporting you've been doing at Motherboard about this and every other subject, motherboard.vice.com. Jason is the editor-in-chief there. And we should
thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
Go ahead.
We should point people to repair.org. That's the group, the nonprofit that is fighting in all of these states. And if you want to raise awareness, both with your state legislature and yourself, about all of this, repair.org is a great place to go.
Yeah, and the EFF is doing a considerable amount on this as well. But
thank you so much, Kelsea and Jason. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Really fun. And in this modern world, it's black and white. It's very difficult.
Yeah. Shades of gray.
I certainly honor your right, and I'm a believer. If you buy something, that's yours. You should be able to mess with it, but you don't have the right to do something that's going to then impact other people over the internet, right?
And the tractor thing is tricky because they don't actually own the tractors. They're leased in. But it just seems madness that if something that's easily fixable breaks and you've got crops rotting the field, you've got to wait for for an authorized dealer to come and fix it.
And if Apple's going to refuse to repair it,
yeah,
his iMac.
I know, that grips my muffin because I've just cracked the screen on my Android phone and looking at the repair costs because the parts aren't readily available, it's like, I may as well just buy a new phone.
And yet, it's
it
absolutely Apple's right to A, refuse to repair, and B, to say, we're not going to sell parts to third parties. You have to go to Apple. It's their right, I think.
I think it is, and I should imagine that basically if somebody did start making screens exactly the same size and shape, they would have a lawsuit coming their way really quickly.
Yeah, I guess I come down on the side of consumers. As Jason pointed out, Apple makes plenty of money.
It's not as though they're short the bobble.
They don't need to screw nice people like Jason because, he tried to upgrade his RAM instead of using that expensive Apple RAM.
I mean, we both grew up in the PC era where, the case on the PC came off at least 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah,
when
that's
you tried
fun.
new cards. Yeah,
that's fun.
You learned a lot about electronics. You learned also about the importance of static straps after frying your first RAM chips.
And by the way, I have changed my oil on my VW and tuned it up. I have. And that was fun, although I'm glad I don't do that anymore. I tried to change the oil on my Tesla and nothing happened. Oh, we're going to take a few calls for help. In just a second. I couldn't understand it. Where's the oil in this thing? But first, Jason Howell has a review of portable. This is very modern. A Thunderbolt 3 portable audio interface for musicians. It's called Arrow. Watch.
Being a portable recording musician has never been easier. There's an abundance of options to allow you to take those song ideas and turn them into something tangible and, more importantly, professional sounding with results that are sure to please. A huge movement in today's audio production world is plug-in-based modeling and emulation of classic audio hardware that, through the magic of DSP and complex computation, can actually nearly replicate the characteristics of hardware that would otherwise cost thousands of dollars. It's super democratizing for independent musicians and professionals alike. My favorite modeling comes from a company called Universal Audio, a company known for their top-notch audio hardware and also their software emulations of classic hardware. Their plugins are so powerful that they actually require UAD's own external DSP hardware to drive it. And they just released a new bus-powered audio interface that I have right here. It's called the Arrow. And that brings so much power into the hands of portable engineers for a fraction of the price of the big stuff. Arrow runs exclusively via a Thunderbolt 3 port on the Mac, which is a little bit of a bummer for me since I don't have a Thunderbolt 3 port on any of my own machines. So I've been borrowing our CEO's laptop for this review. Thank you for your patience, Lisa. The unit design, as you can see, is tight. It's compact enough to be portable, but it's built like a tank. This thing is solid. It has dual XLR inputs on the back for dual mono, or you can also switch that to stereo mic or line inputs that can be linked together to work together in tandem. It can also drive powered monitor speakers with these dual 1/4-inch outputs on the back. Now on the front is a high-Z instrument input for plugging your guitar or your bass into it directly. And then there's also a headphone plug here to make this truly portable. Control-wise on top, you have this large ring, which is kind of the centerpiece, which can control the preamp input level for your audio sources, as well as a monitor and headphone volume adjustments, all swapped easily with these buttons below it. And then to the left, a whole row of useful buttons for switching between inputs. You can roll off some of those super low frequency content like mic rumbles, that sort of thing. Powering condenser microphones with 48-volt switch. There's inverting the phase, a link for stereo inputs, and of course the monitoring section where you see the VU meters jump around. That's the hardware that you see. What you don't see underneath is UAD's signature real-time processing that allows the Arrow to tap into UAD's insanely good catalog of plugins and amp models. And because of UAD's DSP smarts, Arrow is unison compatible, which basically means that select plugins can be applied internally on the Arrow at the input stage in real time with no discernible latency. It's awesome. Latency can be a killer for a performing musician. As one example, this means that you can throw a Neve 1073 preamp model onto the input Then you plug a mic into the back, and it's about as close to recording through an actual Neve in a high-end recording studio as you can get. I did have to alter how my Pro Tools set up preview tracks. Essentially, you monitor through Aero's own software, which is pretty easy to use. And then that signal then gets passed into your digital audio workstation onto a track. But if you happen to monitor your track inside the DAW, you'll hear both signals at the same time, which you definitely do not want. I switched Pro Tools to a low latency monitoring mode, and that totally solved the problem with a single click. UAD's audio hardware is so respected in the audio industry, and having their hardware and software expertise in a portable audio interface is a dream come true for this musician. The best part, it costs $499, which, to be honest, is kind of a steal when you consider that it includes a number of Unison-compatible plugins and can act as a UAD2 solo core processor, which basically means you can bring their awesome plugins into your mixdown as well. I'm pretty sure you can tell that I'm psyched. I'm Jason Howell, and I normally review Android things and all about Android and talk about technology with Technology Minds on Tech News Weekly, but tonight, I think I'll be recording my next Yellow Gold song.
We had to lend him a Thunderbolt 3 computer because there's so few of them.
I remember when it launched and they had such high hopes for it.
I did
and then
too.
it's just like...
But we've seen this before. Scuzzy came and went. Fire, I really liked Firewire, yes. That just shows you. I can't even remember it anymore. I really liked Firewire. Apple and Intel developed it, abandoned it. They call it IEEE 1394. That's maybe a little more memorable than Firewire. And then, and then now Thunderbolt 2, which, and then Thunderbolt 3. And all my computers have Thunderbolt 3. But go and try to find Thunderbolt 3 devices.
Drives
it's hard.
and storage.
Yeah, it's very hard. Are you ready? You want to do a call for help?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Call for help time. Let's go to Huntsville, Alabama. Bill's on the line. Hello, Bill.
Hey, Leo and Ian, how are you?
Oh, great. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. What can we do for you?
Well, my wife's brother is 82 years old. He lives alone in a rural area, and we're concerned about his well-being. He refuses to subscribe to one of those medical alert systems. And I was thinking that perhaps something like the Google Home that can make telephone calls might serve the purpose. Even though it doesn't do 911 calls, he can call people in his contact list.
Yeah, you could totally do that. In fact, I had a caller on the radio show who fell. I think he broke his hip, and he couldn't get to the phone very easily, but he happened to have an Amazon Echo. And as you remember, Echo added the capability of calling other Echoes. It wasn't calling phones yet, although they can do that now if you have an Android device.
Indeed.
And he called his brother and said, "Come over and get me. I can't get up." And it's a lifesaver. Yeah. And I've heard from many people that these voice-activated assistants can be really useful in a variety of ways for people with accessibility issues, mobility issues, elders. My mom is the same age, and she loves her Echo. She has it everywhere, listens to music. So this wouldn't be a hard thing to get into the house. I probably would recommend... Now, Echo does do phone calls, but you need an Android phone.
Right.
It pairs with your Android phone. I would recommend a Google Home, very similar to the Echo. This is the little bit more expensive one. You could get a Mini, the Google Home Mini.
Hockey puck one.
It's about $40-50. He can talk to it and he can make phone calls. In fact, should I make a phone call?
Let's do it.
So the couple of things you'll do, you'll set it up to you told me he has a flip phone. He doesn't have a
Yeah, that's a problem.
So you need an Android.
Anything I've read, it doesn't have a way to do that with a desktop.
You need an Android device, although because you asked us about this, I went and I got my Chromebook. Now this is the latest, greatest Chromebook, but any modern Chromebook that can do Android, believe it or not, can be used to set up the Google Home. In fact, that's exactly what we did here. It's set up to work with my home. So that's kind of cool. But if he doesn't have a Chromebook and you don't want to get him a Chromebook, maybe get him a cheap Android phone. You said you found an old Nexus lying around?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I mean, Nexus will do the job, but pretty much any Android phone.
But you'll have to go there.
Yeah.
So you have to pay a visit and then set it up, and then you can leave. And from then on, this is not paired to a phone or anything. It will use his Google account. So if he doesn't have a Google account, he'll have to set it up. But let me show you here. It uses my contacts.
Right.
So I can say, "Hey Google, call Lisa."
Is that Lisa Laporte mobile?
Yes. So it knows that there are other
Lisa
Lisas,
Laporte mobile.
but it's assuming that I want to call my wife.
Yeah.
And it's asking me which phone. I could use a different phone. It's just like a phone at this point. It's like a speakerphone. You can hear it ringing.
People in the next door office have
Now,
one to us.
you can't do 911, but you could in your contact list have, "Hey, sweetie, I'm just showing off the Google Home. I hope everything's all right. Do you want me to bring anything home after the show?"
Just yourself.
Okay, we got food, we got water, our refrigerator died, so we're kind of living hand to mouth.
Oh.
We're very limited on food right now.
I know.
Okay.
That's okay. All right, thank you, baby. I'll talk to you later.
Awesome.
Okay,
All right.
Google, hang up. So that's pretty cool. And the quality's excellent because these devices, the same of the Echo, have what they call array mics. They're designed for hearing you. It wouldn't hear him if he's pretty far away, but if he's in roughly the same
I think
room.
it's about 9 meters the radius.
Yeah, I wonder if I could do it. I probably could do it from across the room here. He'd have to speak up. You might want to get more than one in that case. In fact, we have one in every room just because we gave one to, not only did I give one to my parents, I gave one to Lisa's parents, and they say, "Hey Google, play Elvis." And they just love the Elvis music. And the speakers are decent enough on this that, this is actually a wonderful device. Easy to use, not as complicated as a computer.
My mum's watching this. She's going to want one of these now.
Does she like Elvis?
Well, no, it's not that. I'm just thinking about the tech support calls that are going to come with this.
I think this is a great idea, Bill. There are other devices. You could put cameras in there. We've had pill minders that notice if the pill is being taken,
right,
and will then use the internet to contact a caregiver. There's all sorts of great devices now, especially as we baby boomers age, are getting a little older. This is a big and growing market. So, but I love this idea, and I think that you can get this into his house without implying. See, I understand why he doesn't want a medical alert device because it implies there's something. He's getting on and he's not as capable. This is just a cool thing that he can use.
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, you'll need your Nexus to set it up.
He doesn't have a Google account, and I wondered if I set one up, would it merge the contacts from his flip phone if I used his flip phone number to set up the...
No,
unfortunately not. That's the problem with the flip phone operating system is slightly different. So transferring your contacts across is, as far as I'm aware, not actually possible. But if you can just get like the key contacts that he can sort of add, and you can add them in over time. But as long as he's got someone who can call, who will pick up the phone at the other end, then that could be a lifesaver if something does happen.
A Google account's free. You probably want to set his own account up so that he's not getting messages from you and from your account. But he can use it to text message. He can use it. There's a lot of things you can do with this. Get the weather. But once you've set it up, he doesn't need a Google device from then on. If he wants you to change something, you could. Dedicate that phone to his account. You could do it remotely. Android devices now allow you to have multiple accounts on them.
Yep.
If it's a relatively modern Android device, you could have your account and his account on there. And so I think this is I love this idea. I think it's a really good.
And would it require a credit card or anything when he sets it up?
Nope. No, Google accounts are totally free. The only thing I was about to say turn on two-factor authentication, but only about 10% of Google accounts
Don't worry about that.
do. So
don't worry about that.
He's not going to be accessing a lot.
Nobody's hacking his account. The only reason you might want to put a credit card in there is he can order groceries delivered using this. And that might be another really, what you're looking for, this is what I look for with my mom, is things that allow him to be independent.
Yeah.
And, it's going to get harder for him to go to the store, things like that. This can order stuff for him and have it shipped to him. Amazon Echo's a little bit better at that, but Google really wants to compete in that sphere. So they've tied in with Target and Walmart and grocery stores. So increasingly you can use this. You can get groceries from this and have it delivered to you. That's awesome.
Well, thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Bill, it's nice to talk to you.
Good to chat.
Take care.
Bye.
Let's do another one. You feel good?
Yeah.
This one's all on you. Our next call for help.
Right.
Now, I think Mark is a canine officer. He's a police officer. And he's here.
Oh, excellent.
We thought you were called away.
Not yet. I haven't got called away.
Okay.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Mark is from, am I saying this right? Cello, Washington? Where's that?
Sela.
Is that in-state or?
Yeah, that's in Washington State, Sela, Washington.
Okay.
What's your question, sir?
I'm buying a new property. It's about 87 acres, but it's just past decent cell phone reception. So when I get out there, the only place I can make a phone call is on the deck in the house, or anywhere else on the property I can't. And even then it's spotty. I can't make text messages or get any data or send any data. So my question is there a way, or what's the best way for me to boost my cell phone service, or be able to get phone calls when I'm on call and such? I know I can do Wi-Fi calling. I've done that before. Is that the best route? Or I've heard of mini cell phone towers and things like that.
Do you have internet access out there?
I will, yes. When I finish with the purchase there, I will have Wi-Fi out.
So this is a simple thing. You're going to go to whoever your carrier is, and you're going to say, I want a femto cell, FEMTOCELL. They have brand names for it, but the technical term is a femto cell. And what it is, in fact, we have one here because we have many of our employees are on T-Mobile. T-Mobile does not work in this building at all. So we went to T-Mobile. We said we wanted, I can't remember what they call it, a mini cell or something like that.
Yeah.
The reason I asked if it has internet is because it connects to your internet. And it does, it's exactly what you just described. It's a mini cell tower. So now, it's not using Wi-Fi, it's a cell tower. So your phone thinks that there is a connected, there it is, right there. That's a microcell, metrocell, sometimes they call it. There's all sorts of names. This is the T-Mobile personal cell spot.
Oh, they do name them.
But the idea is it's going to use your internet for cell service. Now, your phone call will be routed through the internet through the carrier's network.
Now, how would this affect Project the Fi phones?
Google doesn't offer one, but I have a Fi phone, and it thinks T-Mobile is right in the building.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. The way Google Fi works is they ride on T-Mobile, Sprint, US Cellular, and Wi-Fi. Now, I'm using Wi-Fi right now, so that's fine. But if I turned off Wi-Fi, it would say, oh, I see a T-Mobile cell site right there.
Yeah.
And it works. So it acts as a cell site on your property. And
so is that something that I should buy through the cell company, or are there other brands?
No, you get it. You have to get it.
I looked around. I don't know much about them. I see the prices vary greatly on them.
Well, here's the deal. There are a couple of things. First of all, who's your carrier?
Verizon.
Yeah. So you call Verizon and you say, hey, Verizon, I want a cell tower in my house. And now they say there's a price on these. But what you say to them is, I'm a law enforcement officer. I need this to work in my house. I'm going to get another carrier because I can't receive cell reception in my new home. Almost always they'll give you one. T-Mobile gave us this one. Almost always they'll give you one because they don't want to lose you as a customer.
Now, the other thing is that the property is fairly large. I have a shop that I'll be spending a lot of time in that is probably 500 feet downhill from the main house, so the service is even worse down there. Will that get me down to there, or is there some kind of booster I can get to get service elsewhere on the property?
That's an interesting question.
I think I've seen boosters around which can be used to provide a short range burst.
There's Wi-Fi.
It might be better with a directional antenna, though.
Well, so there are cell boosters. In fact, I've told this story before. I love the independent cell phone company guys, right? Because they will break all the rules. They sell service from all the carriers. If you say, I want to get a T-Mobile phone, but I want to move everything over from that one, you tell them whatever they want. They're going to make it happen. So I love this guy, and I always used to go to his shop. He moved shops to a new place in Petaluma. Here's a guy selling cell phone service. He can't get cell phone service in his shop. So he should have checked that before he leased it, I think, right?
Yeah.
So, but what he did is you buy these devices. There are a lot of different manufacturers. He put a little tiny antenna out the door where there was cell phone service, and then it has a wire, or you can have it go wirelessly and extend the cell phone service to the back of the shop. So these are basically cell phone repeaters. I don't know. You're going to have to ask Verizon what the range is of that cell spot you're going to get from Verizon. It's probably not going to go more than 100 feet. Maybe it will. It's not like a real cell tower. It's a mini cell tower.
Yeah.
So it'll go wherever it goes. But if it doesn't go far enough, yes, there are absolutely cell boosters. A lot of companies make these. I'm trying to remember the name of the cell booster that he used because I figure he probably knows what he's doing. Damien is like the king of all of this stuff. Let me just see.
I've heard of Wi-Fi boosters, and so didn't know if it worked on a similar principle or something.
WilsonAmplifiers.com. That's the one he uses, is a Wilson. But this is a great company that make what you need. There's a variety of different choices. And so here's an article on their site, WilsonAmplifiers.com, that actually describes your problem, which is getting your Wi-Fi network to support your cell system, and then a booster that would make it even go farther in your area. These are the femto cells we were talking about.
But you would recommend going with the cell phone booster instead of the Wi-Fi calling booster instead?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just Wi-Fi. Sometimes the quality of calls on Wi-Fi can be slightly more spotty. So cell phone, I think, is the way to go in terms of dealing with quality.
It's also, remember, it's at low frequency. It's a 700 megahertz or lower, and that goes through walls. That's a magic frequency, and Wi-Fi is at a microwave frequency, 2.4 or 5 gigahertz.
Oh, 5, yeah.
Walls stop it. Wi-Fi really is designed to be on line of sight.
Yeah.
But cell phones, your cell phone works in the building very well. That's because it's at a lower frequency. It's 700 megahertz or lower. So, or it's actually sometimes 900 megahertz, but it's in that megahertz range, not the gigahertz range. And so, yes, I would say call Verizon, see what kind of deal you can get on a cell phone extender that uses your Wi-Fi. Start by just seeing if that gives you enough signal. It'll get. Oh, okay. Is that your baby?
That is, yes.
Oh, congratulations.
How old is she?
She's 6 months a couple days ago.
Oh, you're looking surprisingly well rested.
She actually does pretty well now.
Now, does she get to? Oh my God, that's the cutest baby I ever saw. Oh, and she loves her daddy.
That's what I think. I think she's the cutest one ever.
Oh,
so.
Fantastic.
Do you let her play with your dogs?
No, she doesn't. He, as friendly as he is, you just can't take that chance. He's very, very friendly and would come say hi and probably love to say hi to her. But he's allowed in the house, but he's not allowed to come over and really play with her or anything.
I guess that's sensible. Yeah. But I bet as she gets older, maybe she'll form an attachment.
Oh,
yeah, I'm sure. I mean, he would protect everybody here, but most people don't believe he's a police dog because he is just so friendly. But he knows when it's time to go to work. And
when he's working, you don't make that mistake because otherwise you end up in
So look at those microcell boosters. Those we use one here and it works really, really well. You can't. Anybody coming in here would think, oh, T-Mobile's 5 bars in here. It's not. It's 0 bars in here. And it works throughout the building, right? I mean, everybody so it's good enough to get through walls. We've got brick walls. It's able to get through those. I think, how far away from the house do you need it to go?
Well, I have 87 acres, and I'll be on the entire property. However, if I can just at least get down to the shop, I'd be happy. And the shop, like I said, is about 400 to 500 feet downhill from the house.
This sounds like a wonderful place. Are you moving there, or this is going to be your second house?
I'm moving there. It'll be great. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Oh, fantastic.
Well, congratulations. She's going to love it. What's her name?
Aspen.
Aspen.
Oh, good name. Yes.
Well, you have to plant some aspen trees then.
There's some already out there, actually.
My
and that's what she got named out after.
Oh, isn't that great? Okay. Yeah. You know what? This is a constant issue. People move to these beautiful places. You move there because it's open and remote and beautiful. But we still need connection to civilization, and so this is always a challenge. I'm surprised you can get internet. A lot of places like that, internet's free.
Well, it's not. It's really not that far from town. As you drive the road through an agricultural area out there, you kind of go up. You start up just a little bit of a canyon, and it's just kind of just past that, and that's why you kind of lose service. You lose service probably 1, maybe 2 miles at the most before the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets spotty. But the house is up on kind of a hill, so that helps a little bit, I think.
That will help a lot, yeah. I would definitely look at getting a cell signal booster as opposed to a Wi-Fi solution. Okay. Wi-Fi is really not designed for this. It only goes 150 feet. It's just not the ideal for this.
Great. And as long as I get a little bit of cell phone reception there, obviously I should be able to boost it.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, and you'll get a lot from the microcell, right? and that's
Yes,
going to use your internet. And then you just put the booster where it can get a few bars, and it'll be boosted. I mean, if you put enough of these Wilson boosters, you could put it throughout the woods. You can go anywhere.
There's a really tall hill or mountain on the property.
That's always best.
I would if I could put one up there.
Line
but
of
I'd
sight
have to run. Obviously, I'd have to run cables up there though. Is the thing.
Yeah, weatherproof cable though.
No, some of these Wi-Fi some of these boosters are wireless. They're not all wired.
So battery powered then.
Oh,
power cords. Yeah. I mean, you could run a waterproof power cord up there, I would have thought. Hell,
solar. What are you talking about? Solar.
Oh.
I've thought about that, actually.
Yeah.
Of course, you're in Washington State, so.
But I'm on the east side of the mountains. I don't know if you know
good.
about
All right.
Washington
You're in the
State.
sunny
east side of the mountains. It's sunny here like 330 days a year.
You're golden.
Perfect. Yeah.
A little cell.
Yeah,
a little
it's
cell
always
thing.
sunny here.
Little solar thing. There it is. We're looking at it right now.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing how you can surveil people from the.
Are you, is that Sela right there?
That's Sela,
basically?
yeah. That's very pretty.
Okay, yeah. If you go out, well, that's kind of hard to tell. There's a lake called North Weeness Lake off North Weeness Road, and it's right before the lake.
Oh, very
Oh,
pretty.
wow.
Well, we won't.
It's a beautiful
Let's not
part of the
snoop
world.
on him. Come on now.
Yeah.
Yeah, not too much.
Mark, a pleasure talking to you in Aspen.
Than's for the help.
And
Take
congratulations.
Care. Yeah.
Bye.
What a beautiful baby. Oh,
I
my
know,
goodness.
just like staring at the car.
What are you having, kids?
Never
mind, I know.
When Satan goes to work on a snowplow, you know.
A personal question, but I gather the answer is never.
Well, you know, it's. I just have this image of a screaming baby in the room and shouting, "Daddy's on a deadline," and slamming the door. So there's enough people who would be good parents.
It worked for Hemingway. It could work for you. We're going to have a fun time with Megan Morrone next week. If you've got a question for Megan, here's how you ask.
Need tech help? The new screensavers are here with answers. Email your tech questions to newscreensavers@twit.tv.
We'll answer more of your questions in just a bit with the mailbag, but first, Megan has found a clever little bot that will help her with her bills.
And I gather you're quite an expert.
Yes, I love it.
I'm sure you've heard of people who call up various cable or cell phone service providers and periodically ask them to lower their monthly bill. I neither have the time nor the bravery to do that. Luckily, I found a tool that will do it for me. It's called Trim. Trim is a bot that helps you save money on cable, phone subscriptions, and more. It's not an app, but a service that can automatically cancel subscriptions, negotiate bills, or warn you when you're spending too much per month. You can use Trim through Facebook Messenger or through the dashboard on their website. My only real complaint about Trim is that they don't have a standalone app. I signed up for Trim and linked my Sprint service, and right away, Trim saved me $99. That's right, $99. Trim is not free. They take 25% of what they save you annually when they negotiate your bills, and they take it right away. So even though they negotiated my Sprint service down so that I saved $99 after a full year, they charged my credit card the $20 right away. They can do the same with your cable bill. I don't have cable, so that didn't help me. I don't mind paying the $20 to this service because that's how Trim makes money. They also make money like other online financial services in referral fees if they recommend a credit card that I sign up for. They don't show me ads or share my personal information with third parties for promotional or marketing purposes. If you've ever been frustrated by trying to cancel a service and having to search all around their site and never finding an easy link to stop subscribing, Trim can help with that too. They send a firmly worded email to the service on your behalf right away. Now, if you're the type of person who can be mindless about spending, Trim also provides a handy chart that compares this month's spending to last month's, so you can see your monthly charges and organize them by most recent, largest, or by merchant. Trim will also help you shop around for the best car insurance, but that's still in beta. I've submitted a request, and I'll let you know what I found. Got a similar service that saves you money? I'm always interested. Email me at megan@twit.tv.
Thank you, Megan. We see Megan on iOS Today every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. and, of course, on Tech News Weekly every Thursday afternoon at 2:30. Mm-hmm. You know, I was thinking about Trim, tr.im.
Yeah.
Remember what was it, a year ago, 2 years ago, that bots were the next big thing? Remember that at Facebook F8? They said bots are going to be everywhere. And it was horrible.
Yes, I know. They were just, they're artificially intelligent. No, they're not.
They're not. They're farthest thing from intelligence possible.
And they're the one thing that people really, really hate. I mean, it was almost Clippy levels of hate.
They were
really.
annoying. So I was thinking about it, and Trim is the only bot that I actually have kept.
Okay.
So it is slightly useful. And I noticed That's it. Nobody's making bots. In fact, Facebook's kind of artificial intelligence smart assistant bot, they killed it. It's gone.
And rightly so. It was a massive pain.
Yeah, so bots were a failure. It's just, but I tell you what, it's important for us to remember that, because we always see new stuff, we get excited about new stuff, and it's always a good thing to remember, just because it's the hotness this week, doesn't mean it's going to be here in a year.
Remember 3D TV? I mean, for all of CES from about 4 years ago, it was 3D TV is going to be the thing. Sony were launching their channel, and then they discovered actually people aren't going to sit in a sports bar and wear silly glasses just to watch a screen.
Which is, incidentally, one of the reasons I don't think VR is going to do all that well, because who wants to wear those things for all that
and also
time?
you're blind when you wear them. I mean, this is why I think AR is going to be 90% of the market, because you can actually do stuff with them.
Let's get our mailbag in here. Colleen is the pusher.
Oh, bless.
Hack my John Deere. Whose John Deere is this? Jerry, is this yours?
Okay.
Jerry, people don't know this, but in his spare time raises corn. A little tiny plot about that big. You know what I've always wanted? It's just a little farm this big, like a square foot, and a little tractor I could put on my desk.
When I first came here, I tried raising corn because I figured it was a thing to do. And the corn got about 5 feet high, and then some squirrels chewed the bottom off.
They love the corn.
And it was,
They love the corn. But you know, the best popcorn I've ever had, you pop it right on the cob.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever had that?
Oh, no, I haven't.
So good.
Hang on, how does that work?
Wait a minute. I don't know. You put it in the microwave, it pops. It's the best corn I ever had.
Okay.
You ever have that? We now that's all we buy for popcorn.
I will have to give that a shot.
Pick an email.
Okay.
Not that one.
Oh.
No, all right. Let's push this back to the pusher. Email one is yours, my friend, all yours.
Okay, we have video from Chris, as I understand it. But
well, let's play the video and see what he says.
Hi, Leo and Ian. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you, Chris.
I have a question about Spectre and Meltdown and their effects on innovation. I was reading an article with the CEO of Magic Leap, and he said that watching holographic, interactive NBA games was 2 to 5 years out. And that sounds awesome, even as a Knicks fan. However, in the next paragraph, he says, if you time where processing power is going, particularly backends, you're single-digit years away from that happening. Now, it's been widely reported that the early fixes for Spectre and Meltdown have had significant hits on processing performance. Do you think that's going to have a noticeable effect on the release timeline for products like Magic Leaps?
Interesting.
Now, I know it's difficult to say when you don't know the actual timeline, and Magic Leap has been a long time coming, but do you think it'll have an effect on the industry as a whole? Are we going to have to wait for all of those cool toys because of those darn security researchers again? Or can they just throw more hardware at the problem? Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
That's interesting.
I want to give this one to you. First of all, before you answer, high props to the Register, your publication, theregister.co.uk, where we first learned about Spectre and Meltdown. It was in the Register, right?
Yeah.
And the Register said, who wrote that, by the way? Let's give him
that was John Layden and Chris, our US editor.
They were the first. You guys said there was going to be a 5 to 30% performance hit. Everybody, including Intel, denied it. You were right.
Yep.
Furthermore, Intel knew about this 6 months before your article, never told anybody in the U.S., especially CERT, the Computer Emergency Response Team, who are supposed to be told about this.
Yeah.
It wasn't until you revealed it that Intel finally told CERT.
And told the US government, who is a major buyer of Intel processors.
They told Lenovo before then. They told the Chinese company. They didn't tell the US government.
It's just insane. I mean, I know China is a big market and all that, but, you're an American company and your chips are widely used in the army and law enforcement. It might be a good idea just to let them know there's an issue and that you're working on a problem.
So props to the Register.co.uk.
Oh, well, thank you.
You guys are doing very good work. I have to say, better and better all the time. Sometimes I think people think, oh, it's the snark fest because you guys are so funny in your headlines and your writing. But actually, there's deep knowledge and understanding and great reporting going on.
You've got to have the software knowledge, the hardware knowledge. Otherwise, you're just basically repeating press releases.
Yeah. So we owe a real debt of gratitude to the Register for
you're embarrassing me. No.
Now, He asked a question I had never really thought of. Of course, fixing this is a problem. Intel says we're not going to really fix it until there's new hardware. Given the time it takes to develop a new chip, that's 18 months, 2 years off, right?
But they're already working on that in terms of new processor design.
Yeah, but we also know that speculative execution, which is what caused this problem, is critical for processors these days. Are they going to be able to? So this is a great question.
I was going to say, I mean, this covers an awful lot of areas and an awful lot of things. The information we're getting from ARM, from AMD, and when on the occasional time Intel speak to us because they're still a bit pissed off with us. But basically, it's they are trying to work on a redesign, but it is going to mean a short-term performance hit. Now, coming back to your question as to whether or not this is going to delay Magic Leap's release, I'm going to take a little bit of a flyer on this and say that we will never see a Magic Leap consumer product.
Oh, my God.
And if they get one out in the next 2 years, I will do the next mailbag after that. Well, not naked, actually, just in my shorts. I'm that confident that it's vaporware at this stage. But in terms...
Wait a minute. We got to break that down. Hold on. Hold on there, Mr. Naked Reader. So Magic Leap, we should explain, is an augmented reality play that has never really shown publicly what they can do.
No.
They've shown a number of journalists, people like from Wired magazine, Kevin Kelly, who have then written, praiseful articles about this. The idea is that you would be wearing something. They had a very sophisticated technology. I had heard that it wasn't working as well as they had hoped, but they also announced this year they're going to have a development kit available, weird looking glasses, but it's something people can work with. So we're getting close. They've raised huge amounts of money. I don't know what
burnt through a huge amounts of money.
I don't know what their valuation is, but it's remarkable. And one of the reasons I think people are a little mad at them is because of the videos they make, which imply capabilities they haven't yet demonstrated.
Exactly, and there's rub on it.
Those weird glasses.
It just...
But that's a developer edition. Notice it's tethered, but not to a computer, but to something on your hip. Light field technology is the key technology that they claim. If it worked well, it would be a breakthrough for AR. But you don't think it's going to?
We've been hearing promises from Magic Leap again and again and again. And I've spoken to people who used to be in the company and who are friends with people who are in the company.
Tell me about that.
And it does seem like they're so far away from being a consumer play, and everyone else is putting so much money, Google and Microsoft and the others are putting so much money into it that they're probably going to be bought out and quietly retired.
Right. That's, I'm sure, what they're hoping for.
Well, I mean, it's very good news for the founders, certainly, but, less good for those of us who actually want to use this kit.
So there are some, the technical issues are not merely processor performance that have to be solved.
Processor performance is important, but you've got battery life, you've got the ability to build the hardware into the lenses to allow this to be possible. I mean, when I first tried out Microsoft's HoloLens, I was frankly blown away and said so on Megan's show. But it was, you had to carry like a little shoulder pack with 3 fans going 10 to the dozen. And
it needs a hefty PC.
Yeah, exactly. So with something like this, even Oculus are saying we are 10 years away from a wearable pair of glasses which will do AR and VR.
It's not hard to imagine a product that people would want if you don't look like that guy in the picture, like a bug. But if it looked kind of like your normal spectacles, and you were able to see a heads-up display, that's what this would be effectively, where you're looking at the world. It's not disorienting. You're not isolated. You don't get nauseous. You're looking at the world, but you see stuff superimposed on the world.
That's the rub, yes. So
and if you can get that to work in something that's not super heavy, that has decent battery life, that doesn't look completely dorky, that's a HoloLens we're seeing right there, I think.
Which does look pretty dorky, but even so, I mean, it's the kind of thing you could actually use.
Is Microsoft closest?
Microsoft, well, I don't know. I mean, Microsoft have been putting a lot of work into it. There's talk about whether or not Google has decided it's going to sort of up its own thing. Oculus
and Apple also, too.
Yep,
has said again. Tim Cook said AR is the next thing for us.
It is. I mean, all the estimates we've seen are that, or current estimates that we've seen are about 80% of the market is going to be AR and about 10%. 20% maybe, if they're lucky, is going to be VR.
There's reasons for VR. When we were at Ford about 3 or 4 years ago now, and we went to the design center, the designers would often use virtual reality to see what it looked like if you were in the car, a car that didn't exist, looking out the window, how the controls looked. It didn't exist. It wasn't built. It was the only way they could kind of get a sense for how it would work, and that's for a good use for VR.
Oh yeah, I mean,
gaming is a good use for VR.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Formula One junkie, and I would kill for a VR Formula rig with the buff moved around a bit. That would just be insanely good to have.
But there are technical issues again, and I think there are human issues. I think the nausea factor is significant.
They've done a lot to combat the nausea by increasing the frame rate, and the faster you can get the frame rate, the less likely it is that you're going to suffer nausea issues. But yeah, throwing up in a VR helmet is never going to be fun.
Not good. So, Meltdown and Spectre.
Yeah, that's slowed.
Is it really the problem at this point, I think?
Not really. I mean, okay, any kind of loss of processor power is always to be avoided, but the fixes, for the kind of really high-end processing that's needed as opposed to, I mean, some of the big hits they took in processor performance were in cloud data centers.
Because they're shared processors.
Yeah,
that was the real problem there.
So, in terms of, is this going to significantly slow down? Probably not, because all you can do is just increase the clock rate a little bit for certain specific functions.
I'll go even farther. I would be surprised if general purpose processors are used for this kind of stuff. I imagine it would be much more custom silicon, probably GPU-like custom silicon, because of the kinds of processing you're doing. It's very specific. And so a general purpose processor from Intel, ARM, AMD isn't what you need. You need something that's designed to do AR specifically. So I would bet you this is not an issue at all, but there are so many other issues.
Yes,
it's not around the corner.
I know, and it's one of those things where it's been so overhyped, and we're sort of at the peakish of the hype cycle now, and then we're going to sort of slide down.
It's much like what I was referring to earlier with bots.
But it's coming. Yeah. Sooner or later, enough people want this, and enough people seem to be willing to pay for it, and enough manufacturers are interested in building it that it is definitely coming.
There's tons of money being poured into it.
Oh yeah, there's an awful lot of money. But then again, there have been tons of money poured into
self-driving cars.
Yeah. But also the failures, things like WiMAX and 3D TV, and the industry finds out whether these things work. But I do think there's enough momentum behind AR VR that it's going to take off.
Yeah.
Just not in 2 years.
I think AR, less so VR, but AR and voice assistance, and ultimately, I think the trend is towards displayless, ubiquitous intelligence. In effect, imagine if Amazon Echoes or a Google Assistant is with you at all times, and you don't know what you're talking to. It's just there. It's doing your bidding. It's personalized because it's learning your preferences. And that would go very nicely with some sort of display built into eyewear. I think that's where you're going to go. Maybe the temple piece is where that assistant lives.
I mean, my dream system is a pair of ordinary-ish looking glasses, with just a little microphone in the back, so when I meet somebody who I've met before and I can't remember their name, it just whispers in. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
That's Leo. You used to know him. Hey, how you doing? Ian. Ian.
It's just like, yes, he's had 2 children and his wife's just left him. And
Again? All right, email number 2. As a long time, this is from Barnett. As a longtime listener of the Twit Network, I would like to thank you for the coverage of the network neutrality issue. Yeah, we certainly have. One of my coworkers has an interesting take. He says that network neutrality is rooted in and inspired by 1930s telecommunication law and is thus anti-competitive. Oh, dear. And that getting rid of the network neutrality would actually increase competition because service providers can then charge anyone whatever they want. Is that true? And if not, what proof exists that he's wrong?
Well, like all assumptions, it kind of...
It's half true.
It has its roots in,
It's not anti-competitive.
No.
So we'll explain why the 1934 Telecommunications Act is germane at all. But first we have to lay flat another canard, which was that net neutrality is something that the Obama administration invented and enforced late last year. No, it's quite the opposite. The internet was born neutral, but by which we mean, by design, by which we mean it doesn't care what it's carrying, that any kind of bit is carried equally across the network and is available to everybody on the network without toll roads, additional charges. You know, it's YouTube. Oh no, we got to charge you more for that. None of that. All bits are equal. They were from day one. That was how it was designed.
Yep, right.
And the FCC was enforcing it. And I could point to a lot of examples. AT&T, for instance, was blocking BitTorrent. Was it AT&T and BitTorrent? I think it was.
They slowed down Netflix.
No, that's Comcast and Netflix.
Yeah,
that's another story. But the FCC fined them, said you can't do that. Yeah. It's anti-competitive.
Which it was.
Because AT&T has a phone service, and they didn't want you, with Skype actually, they didn't want you using Skype because it competed with their phone service, and AT&T knocked it off, and that was several years ago. But here's what happened. AT&T, Verizon, Comcast didn't like that kind of enforcement. We're not talking about regulating the internet. We're talking about regulating internet service providers and making sure that they don't interfere with the fundamental tenet of the internet, that all bits are created equal. The FCC was doing that, but Verizon sued.
Yep.
And a judge said, you know, truth is, this is the nature of the FCC. You can only enforce, you can only do what Congress says you can do.
Yep.
And the judge's opinion was, this is not in your congressional mandate. But the judge said an interesting thing. However, the Telecommunications Act does allow you to regulate internet service providers if you classify them as carriers, like a phone company, as opposed to information services like Google. And in fact, isn't that what an internet service provider is? Instead of carrying voice data, they carry bits.
Yeah,
they are a carrier. So and this was a very big battle we all fought, we talked a lot about, but finally we won after millions of comments. Obama's FCC director, Tom Wheeler.
Quite unexpectedly as well, because everyone was expecting Wheeler to be a complete shill for the telco industry.
Absolutely.
Considering his past employment there, and he manned up and did it.
I think his inclination was to be a shill for the industry until he saw those 1.5 million comments and said, oh, America wants, the people want a free and open internet. So they promulgated this net neutrality regulation, which required them to classify internet service providers as carriers using Title II. Now, this is one concern people had. Title II also allows them to regulate carriers, as they do the telcos, with charging tariffs, with rates, to tax them differently. There's all sorts of things the FCC can do. They were very clear, Tom Wheeler is very clear, we intend this to be light touch regulation. We're only invoking Title II because it's the only way the court will let us defend net neutrality. I was okay with that. There was no evidence they were doing any of the things people said that the FCC was going to do, like forcing rate changes.
Absolutely not. I mean, it was a very light hands-on. They agreed not to enforce a whole bunch of different rules.
To be fair, we only had a year, and now it's gone as of Friday. Net neutrality is gone. And in this case, Jit Pai, the replacement chairman of the FCC, did not pay attention to what I think were millions of comments. The American people in polls again and again have said they want a free and open internet. The internet was born free and open, should be free and open. That's where you get competition. That's the only way you get competition. It's anti-competitive to let any internet service provider to say, well, Skype competes with us or YouTube competes with us, so we're going to charge them extra. Or be a toll keeper and say, well, if you want to get to Leo and Iain as a company, you're going to have to pay extra money. That's bad for Twit, for instance, because we rely on the fact that we're treated equally over the internet. So this is, in my opinion, good regulation. Net neutrality is designed to protect the internet as it was designed, to regulate not the internet, but to regulate companies from doing bad things to your internet.
Yeah, I mean, it's also got the key example I would use in this is that without net neutrality, we would have no Google. Because if you remember back in the search engine days...
Well, screw Google, we'd have no Twit.
Well, yes, there is that, true. But I mean, back in the early days, there were a whole bunch of different search engines. And, you know, if Google came up with a much better algorithm than anyone else to actually perform search. But if they did that and we hadn't had net neutrality, MSN and Ask Jeeves and all those other also-rans
they would have just shut them down.
Would have just said, right, well, we'll buy 10 times faster access, and that's the end of the game.
So, by the way, Google now is doing the same to its competitors, and that's what happens. That's why you need, I'm all in favor of competition and capitalism, but capitalism does need some checks. They need some antitrust rules. They need some protections. The internet needs some protections. So I think this is reasonable, and the American people have by a large majority, said we want net neutrality. Now, maybe the best solution would be to go back to Congress and say, look, clarify this.
Yeah.
Give us a law that doesn't require using Title II. I don't think it's unreasonable to say that internet service providers are carriers. I think that's exactly what they are.
Yeah.
But if you want, it would be appropriate. And AT&T has actually took out full-page ads saying, well, Congress, you need to solve this. The problem is I don't think Congress will solve this. I think AT&T and Comcast and Sprint and Verizon give bundles of money to members of Congress. We know how that works out.
Yes, exactly.
In fact, it's worked out exactly as they had hoped. So,
I mean, coming back to the reader's question as well, it was just like, if people can charge what prices they want, then you get a competitive market. But
if there's choice.
Yes, in the US, there isn't a choice to have a competitive market. Over half of US ISP people who buy from ISPs have only 2 choices for high-speed internet, and 5% of the country doesn't have any choices.
Right.
So
people blame the FCC for that, and it was in fact FCC that set up this duopoly of the phone company and the cable company being the only big pipes into your house. But we should point out they did it because they were strong-armed by the telcos, and more importantly by the cable companies. Said, well, if we don't get these rules, if we don't get a monopoly, we're not going to dig those trenches. We're not going to put up those poles.
But it never stopped them investing when we had net
They'll
neutrality
do
in the
it.
first
Don't
place.
listen. There's a good bit of money to be made in it.
Yes.
And a little bit of light-handed regulation is not going to take that away. They're making plenty of money.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, and as you say, competition requires some regulations. This whole idea of free the market of all regulations and it'll sort itself out is as much a fantasy as communism ever was. So, it's
challenging, but we can solve this. We really can. And I'm glad you wrote it, and I'm glad we could give you some ammunition.
I'm glad people are talking about this, because if you tried to bring this argument up 10 years ago, people would be like, what? Now you've got a lot of very smart and increasingly angry people just saying...
It's also frustrating to me because there's a lot of disinformation, like your friends, and people who say, oh, no, net neutrality, that's something the Obama administration invented. That's not true. It's not true. And so we need to get the facts out there.
Exactly.
Also. Then we can have a conversation about how this should be implemented, who should implement it, and so forth. I want to invite you all to take our survey. It's kind of a last chance now. Go to twit.tv/survey. We do this once a year because we don't want to collect information about you. A lot of places do. We don't. But once a year we ask, we ask politely. You don't have to answer any question. You don't have to answer the survey at all. But if you would, it helps us not only understand better what you want, what you're looking for, how you listen to our shows, but also, I'll be frank, helps us with advertisers because a lot of them say, well, do you have any women listening? And we'd like to be able to say, no, absolutely not. And that's that comes with no. It's, I don't know, what is it, Jerry? 5%? 95% men. 95% men. It's okay. It's okay. And I got into this for the chicks. What a mistake. Twit.tv/survey. And if you are a woman, actually, you see what I've done now? I've slanted the survey because we're going to get a disproportionate number of women saying, no, I listen. Twit.tv/survey. Be honest. We also invite you to use the Twit Flash Briefing. We do that for almost every show now. If you have an Amazon Echo, just go into your Echo app and look at the Flash Briefing section and add Twit little clips in your daily news briefing from some of our shows, including this one. Iain, so great to have
Always
you.
Good fun.
You've become more and more of a regular up here, and I appreciate it.
I was going to say, I was doing Twit last weekend.
Yeah,
so
you were
Sunday.
It was,
nothing I like better than chewing the fat on a Twit show, but this is, I like meeting the readers, or the listeners. It's just like some of the stuff that we've got out there is great.
Thank you. And I think we should give you this for your commute.
I couldn't possibly deprive him.
Just if you're in Petaluma long enough, guaranteed, you will see somebody putting down the road.
I can remember when I first came up here and the traffic was an absolute nightmare, and I was like, what's going on? It's our annual Butter and Eggs Festival. And you're like, are they actually just ragging the new guy? They can't possibly be doing that.
But true.
Sure enough, there is a Butter and Egg ceremony. You had eggs up on
coming
the thing.
up, end of April.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So I shall make sure to stay.
Please.
I'm kind of... Do they do like sculptures out of butter and that sort of thing? Or is it too hot for that?
They have. One year, many years ago, they made the world's largest omelet. They have a little competition for babies. They dress up as chickens. They call it the cutest little chicken town.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't.
Many of the, in fact, pretty much everybody in town drives down. It's a complicated thing because everybody's in the parade, but if you have everybody in the parade, then nobody there to watch it. So what happens is when you get to the end, there's a social contract. You just quick and you sit down and you watch the next guy coming along.
I do love these. I mean, in the UK where I was growing up, we have Wells dressings, which is pressing flower petals onto wet clay to make mosaics and then displaying them for a month. So everyone's got their own little thing, you know. It's
some weirder than others.
Oh, come on! We were driving north in December, and they had a lit farm equipment with the fairy lights parade going down the central street on a Saturday.
We do that every year. Well, the boat parade, always a good time.
Really?
Thank you for making your way up here. I really appreciate it.
Always good fun, Leah.
Come back anytime. We always love having you. You could find Ian's work at the Register. There it is, cutest little chick contest. A guy driving a tractor. I see him all the time on our roads. Just to visit theregister.co.uk. There's Mom and Dad. Did you see them on the float? We do this show every Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 2300 UTC. Please stop by and watch live. You can see the sausage, or in this case, the omelet being made, twit.tv/live. If you're watching live, you might as well be in the chat room, irc.twit.tv. Great bunch of people in there. And of course, we make every show available on demand as well at twit.tv, our website, or wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe. Then you'll automatically get it as fresh as can be, right off the chute. As it comes into comes off the assembly line into the podcast appliance. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the new Screensavers. Bye-bye. Viva los